G'day, legends. Welcome back to Roadside, presented by Zwift. We are back again for our Giro lift out. We've just finished stage 15 and we've just finalised the second week of the Giro D'Italia with the rest day commencing right now as you are listening. Tommy, it's been an interesting second week of the Giro, mate. What has stood out for you as we've just finished stage 15?
Oh, mate, the open racing. It's been brilliant. You were onto it, mate. You thought, oh, this second week, it's pancake flat, it's boring. Haven't we had it all? We've had, big crashes. It's caused a split in the GC. We've had some pretty good sprint finales as a result. And then what we just saw then on stage 15 into Visaggio was one of the best stages I've seen in a long time. I thought it was so exciting. So for me, it's really been that's been the element, that has been the element of just pure ciclismo. And I've been loving it. And to be honest, UAE, they've done a pretty good job at defending the jersey. They've, been throwing a lot of curveballs throughout the week. And, yeah, they've spent a lot of biscuits trying to do it. But so that'll be interesting to see how it pays off in the third week. But for me, that's, the open racing for one. What about yourself?
Well, yeah, it has been okay. I feel like this week of racing has simmered. I don't think the parcours has really given us much, but the riders have turned up and really made the most of what they could race this week. I really like the circuit in Slovenia. I didn't mind that. I reckon the circuits are a great way to go. I didn't mind that at all. I loved Carapaz and Bernal all week, willing to throw caution to the wind and attack on relatively mediocre parkour. I didn't mind the Lego head, big as green, getting the win from the TV break. I mean, that looked like a waste of time, that breakaway in the rain. But he really proved everyone wrong there. That was great to see. And I tell you what, Del Toro, he's just looking better and better. So I enjoyed him. And the pink Maglia Rosa skin dog, it's hard to beat that look. It looks so good.
Yeah, it does, hey. It is. I want to see, everyone should be rocking the skin dog, shouldn't they?
They absolutely should, especially the pink one. Now, we're going to go through the big highlights of the second week, in particular stage 15 as well. But we do have some news that's popped up throughout the last few days since our last episode, Tommy. A quick one from Escape Collective, just talking about Geraint Thomas and his post-career, move where he will be joining Ineos, it was announced, as one of their upper management or a senior management role. And from what I can tell on the article from Escape, it will be really dialed in to try and get their team back to a GC force. And he's going to be, I guess, in a sort of a steering role. It looks quite high up. So I'm interested to see how he'll go there, Geraint Thomas. A lot of experience in a successful GC team with Bernal, with Chris Froome, with Bradley Wiggins. He's probably got a lot to offer.
Yeah, he would have so much to offer, so much knowledge. But could you imagine just being a rider? Like, what you see from Thomas, obviously, in the media, and, you see he's cool, calm, collected. You ask him a question, he goes, he does that Cav thing. He looks away and he just goes, "Oh man, it's just going to be mega. You just got to go for it, don't you?" Could you just be a rider just going, "Thomas, what do you reckon? How do we handle this scenario?" And he just would give you the most useless bit of information before thinking about it.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I look forward to see what he looks like after a couple of years of cycling because he loves his beers. I reckon he's gonna gain about 4,000 kilos because he just loves a Guinness. But he's going to be a good director. I think he'll be a really good for Ineos, and they look like they've actually flipping the coin and going back to the way they used to race in their successful Team Sky era. Now, the other bit of news, Tommy, that I noticed this week was Del Toro, and this was reported from Gazzetta dello Sport, of course, the Italian media outlet, the newspaper. They reported that his contract, Tommy, is worth around €800,000 per season right now, which is signed until 2029. And you might be thinking, yeah, that's a pretty good contract for someone in his second year as a World Tour professional. But we know, as we've seen from Del Toro, he's worth much more than that. And he has a clause in the contract that if he does podium a Grand Tour, he will be able to renegotiate a contract with the UAE, his team, and obviously trigger some increase in salary there. And it's a very similar contract, I guess you could say, set up to what Pogacar had back in 2019 when he podiumed the Vuelta and he was able to re-sign a new deal worth, something close to $1.5 million per season. So Pretty impressive. And I tell you what, he's on his way to a bit of a paycheck the way he's riding so far.
Yeah, he certainly is, isn't he? But it's fascinating when you think about it. 800,000, you go, wow, that's, you look at it and you go, that's not a lot for a guy doing what he's doing at the moment. But when you think about it, he came into the sport, as one of the elites. He was right up there, the Tour de l'Avenir. He won his second ever World Tour stage race, the stage at TDU. I reckon there's guys on a lot more than that or around that much money as veterans who would not be winning or bringing in that many UCI points. So you go, yeah, they've probably got him cheap, don't they?
Oh, they've got him cheaper, right? And they'll surely be hoping. Well, you know what? They've probably got no bank balance really to go with, so they're just paying whatever. But he's doing the right things, and I'm interested to see how that eventuates. Now, everyone, don't forget you can follow us on YouTube as well if you're enjoying watching our platform or listening. Make sure you do hit the bell on Spotify or on Apple and follow us along. Get the episodes straight when they get into your feed. It also helps the podcast grow as well. But let's get into this Giro lift out, Tommy. It is Roadside presented by Zwift. So, Tommy, kicking back where we left off, stage 12. At the beginning of the week, we had Olav Koy get his first stage win of the Giro, and a much needed one for him, I would say, in the sprinter ranks so far. Stage 13 was Mads Pedersen winning that uphill sprint against Mads and Del Toro in Vicenza. Asgreen, the big Lego man, the blockhead, he got the stage 14 solo TV break in Gorizia in Slovenia. And then, of course, last night it was I guess you could say, elder statesman Carlos Verona winning solo and his very first Grand Tour stage, surprisingly, as Roglic lost time as well as the big talking point there. So it was an up and down week, Tommy, with some excitement, some mild stages, but the major talking points, I think, for this week we've got to talk about. And I reckon the first one is one of the big GC contenders, Ciccone, ruled out of the race, stepped off the bike on stage 14, and it was a big blow for Lidl Trek. And geez, on stage 15 the next day, they delivered a flower, I suppose, with that bad news.
Yeah, it was pretty hectic. Yeah, very sad to see Ciccone step off. He's a passionate Italian who just every year I think he's been coming to the Giro. I can't remember the last time he sort of has missed it for over preference for something else.
It's been ripped away from him a few times. I think it's actually happened. Yeah, but he was in maybe when he was Italian national champ or something similar, and it got taken away from him. I think he had concussion before the Giro, maybe Tour of the Alps, and that ruled him out. So disappointingly, and you know what? It also just makes it harder for an Italian to win a stage in this year's Giro because he was probably one of the big chances to do so. And once they reach stage 16 on Tuesday after the rest day, I think that takes it to 17 days without a Italian winning a stage of the Giro, and that is the equal record since I think 2017 when the Bali won. So it makes it difficult for the Italians to get their stage win.
Yeah, they're crying out for one, aren't they? They had success a couple of years ago with Damiano Caruso was on the podium, but that just seems like a bygone era, doesn't it? So it's fascinating for that to happen at the moment. But regardless, for Ciccone, they've delivered again, haven't they? Mads Pedersen, he had another really good victory. That was a doozy against Wout van Aert. It just shows that Mads is the strongest ruler, I think, in the peloton. I think, yes, we recognise Mads winning his fourth, but Koy, where he won on stage 12, that was an impressive sprint. He did it easily. And I think it showed that Koy and Caden are still the two fast men when it comes to a bunch gallop. But that was an uphill kicker. Wout in the hoods, Mads in the drops, and he just got it done, didn't he? It was clutch. It just showed the polish of Pedersen.
It did, and he's a chance of 5 stages when they get to Milan in the finale. But Verona getting the 5th stage for Lidl as a team, they are bossing this Giro, and Ciccone being there would have been a nice icing on the cake because he probably would have top 5 overall. But the other bit of news as well on stage 14, it was a bit of chaos into Slovenia. Tabiri, he lost a minute for Bahrain Victorious, and he was caught out in stage 15 as well. At the beginning of the stage during break formation, and just kind of Bahrain asleep at the wheel a little bit, and it cost them because in stage 13, Tiberi was third on GC, and now looking at him on GC, Tiberi is down at seventh spot, so he's dropped a couple of minutes. So not a great week for Tiberi, and takes out, or at least makes it more difficult for one of the top GC contenders.
Yeah, it certainly does. Yeah, Bahrain, they were fourth overall last year, or at least in the top five with Tiberi. So he's a quality rider. He's a rider that, comes to his own in the third week as well. And having Caruso up there, the steady hand, I think that's going to be really important for those sort of outline riders, not on the top step of the podium just yet, but to have the few options is really impressive. I'm really impressed by the way that they've actually ridden this Giro, despite those sort of misdemeanors that you mentioned. I don't know how Bahrain, though, they've got all right budget, but they're just not a sleek operation. They're just not they don't scream like a unit that galvanizes, does it? They just seem like, they come to a race and the guys, they roll around and they have a go, but they're not winners.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't look very attractive to sign with them as a team right now, but things can change. The other big talking point, I think, and the major ones really are the fact that Del Toro looks so good. And, he's still untested in the proper mountains, but every test he's been given so far in this Giro, he has not only passed, but you would say A+, because he is always there. He's always on the wheel. He's responding to moves. He responded to Carapaz and Bernal throughout stage 15 today, which we'll talk about in a moment. And he's looking better and better as the race goes on. And the last time he had an opportunity to race a Grand Tour, which was last year, his very first year in the World Tour, he raced the Vuelta, but we couldn't get a good read on how he would go on the mountains, the proper mountain stages, because he got COVID and he had to leave the race. So we didn't get to see what he was like in the third week, and we'll get to see that now. And he's got a minute 20 lead on the Giro in the strongest team so far, and he looks everything up to the fight.
He responded to numerous attacks tonight with just that youthful sort of eagerness. There was a move, I think Yates went after Tiberi or someone, and it was just on that one of those little kickers, and then he just pounced on it. And he actually caught up to Yates. This is Del Toro, and he actually had to almost break. He was coming up to him that quickly. And it's moments like those that, he just maybe the youthful ignorance was just coming to the fruition. He had to just take his time, because he, by all means, he might not be the leader of that team. Externally, I think tonight sort of showed the way that he was responding to almost all these moves, that they are still very much looking at Ayuso as the man in the third week. But Ayuso did not look too sharp tonight, did he?
He didn't. I actually was thinking that on the Mount Grappa climb, I just copped a few, because we saw on stage 15, tonight's stage, we saw Bernal and Ineos lighting it up, and Carapaz getting involved, and we saw Del Toro was the first to easily close that move down. But I did cast my eye down to the back of the group and just saw Ayuso, and you can always tell when a rider is looking bad. It's hard to tell if they're looking good. He didn't look very good at all. He had his head down at moments, and he wasn't pedaling that nice fluffy cadence, and he was just riding at the back of the group where he didn't look so good. So Del Toro looking great, and there was even a moment when Bernal and Carapaz were going full nanas trying to break this race up at the top of Grappa, and he was putting on a gilet. He's sitting up on the bars, putting on the gilet before the descent, and there is Bernal with his head tilted to the left like he always does when he's on a burner, and Del Toro in the wheel putting on this vest. And I tell you what, as good as Del Toro is, it's a bloody war crime he doesn't have a pink Maglia Rosa vest, because he goes and puts the UAE white vest on over the Maglia Rosa skin dog. He looks terrible in that. They need to get him a pink.
Mate, he's got bigger things to worry about than the vest.
No.
He's going to be worried about his Spanish compatriot, his teammate across the aisle in the bus. He's got to be worried about him, mate.
Mate, he looks terrible in that white vest. You go look at some photos. They should be deleted from the internet, but he's looking so good. And speaking of the opposite of that, Tommy, who's looking so bad? Roglic losing, or what is he now? He's lost 5 spots on GC after stage 15. He completely just was nowhere. He looked like a toilet. He was so far back, and he is now in 10th spot at 3:53 behind Del Toro, and let's just count it, about 2 minutes 30 off Ayuso, who was his main rival, and he looked like he was hunger flatting on the climb, Tommy, and that could be
Yeah,
a
he did, didn't he?
consolation.
He did. Yeah, he looked like he just had that monotone face on him. That sort of bloke who, you'd look at him on the bike and he'd just give you the 1,000-yard stare. So I'm amazed at the not overly a difficult stage. Look at the profile of stage 16, what they come out of the blocks with the next week is savage. The Giro has rated all their stages with 5 stars, 1 to 5 in a nutshell. There are 3 that are 5-star, and they are all in this last week. So Roglic to shed time when it wasn't necessary, and we don't know if he's sick, and you've reflect upon maybe the difficulties he's had at the gravel stages. He had a little innocuous crash on the time trial before the T2. All these things, mate, they add up. That stress, that inability. Maybe there's not the self-belief in the Red Bull group. They've lost Jai. Martinez isn't exactly the man he was last year, where he was on the podium at the Giro. So, yeah, maybe there's a few questions going on at the Red Bull bus.
Well, it's an interesting one. I wonder what people are thinking. Make sure you give us your thoughts. Do you think Roglic is going to come back here at the Giro? Has he got something else to give? He is a bit of a sleeper when it comes to Grand Tours, but we must remember that he is riding the Tour de France. He's announced himself riding the Tour de France, so you have to assume that he is coming into the Giro underdone. And is that ruin his preparation for this third week? Because
is he though? Is he underdone, or are we just thinking that he's trying to do what Tade's done last year?
But he's definitely underdone. Yeah, I think he said that he was coming in a little bit under shape into this race because he knows it's a backloaded third week. And then, of course, you're going to be not going to have much time to train after the Giro with a 4-week block before the Tour. So you do have to manage your load. But, I mean, if anything, after that first 6 or 7 days, you're probably detraining as a GC rider anyway because they barely got any mountains to race on. So it's an interesting one, but we should go through the GC as it stands, Tommy. What are we looking at here at the moment at the rest day in week 3?
Well, at the top of the list, Isaac Del Toro. He's got a handy 1:20 buffer over Simon Yates at Visma Lease Bike, who had a stellar day out, a very good week. Minded his time during the gravel, did an okay TT. Anyway, behind him, he's got Juan Ayuso at a 1:26 to Del Toro, then Carapaz, another 50 so seconds back, and then G, Damiano Caruso at Tona Tabiri, Bernal, Tierna Arnsman, Roglic at 10th, and I'll go all the way to say Brandon McNulty and then Michael Storer, who is in 12th, who just salvaged his day. On the final climb today, he just latched on the young, he's not young anymore, the West Australian. He just got there for the descent. Rode himself back into that GC group because that GC group, they were not waiting around for anybody. They put in, as soon as Roglic was out the back, they just turned the screws.
So, Tommy, do you think the top 3 of the GC as it stands right now, with Del Toro, with Simon Yates, with Juan Ayuso, do you think it'll change by the end of week 3? Do you think that's going to be the podium, or do you think there's riders out there that can infiltrate even with the time gaps as they are right now?
Yeah, I think Derek G is going to move up. I think tonight, he was bided his time. He had it. He rolled the dice. The racing just wasn't hard enough for him. And I think the Canadians got a real strong ticket to punch in the last week. Simon Yates, I'm confused. He hasn't done a lot this year. He's one of those guys, him and his brother, they sit around the back of the peloton. They probably go to the volcano. They train their house down. But I heard he was sick early in the season. He's sort of recovered. He's there and thereabouts. And, like you said, this Giro hasn't been overly difficult, has it? We haven't had big mountain passes yet. So at the moment, I just don't think you can judge any GC rider on what's been on the road. And, even Roglic today on stage 15 was just an abnormality. He hunger flatted or something. He's maybe a little bit of illness, potentially. The Giro, there's been a couple of long days in the rain, the stress. Maybe he's sick. But I think, Bernal, the way Ineos are racing, he could certainly look to move himself up. Him and Tierna Arnsman, I've been impressed. They just want to race, don't they? They just want to have a go.
They definitely want. I think you're right with Bernal. He definitely just needs the terrain to do what he's trying to do. I think Aaronsman looks. He looks a rung below the other contenders, but he is there. But Bernal certainly looks like one who can jump further up in the standings. Yeah. Remember, 10th place is Roglic, and he's at 353. That is nothing when we haven't even stepped into these mountain stages. And when we get into that second or third day in a row of high mountains of 4,000 meters vert, you know, there are going to be gaps. There are going to be riders that have a bad day and they lose 4 minutes. So the cards can be shuffled for sure, but there's no doubt that that Bernal and Carapaz look like the riders that are really going to shake things up. And I'm interested to see whether or not Del Toro can hold on. And I have a feeling that Del Toro, what I'm expecting of him, Tommy, is that he'll survive the first mountain stage, the big one on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if he can do it day after day yet. I think in the future, absolutely. But let's see if he can back up 2 massive days in a row. I think that'll be the big question.
Well, the UAE log jams, it's unjammed now, isn't it? You know, it's clear that we've got Adam Yates. He's going to be working. Mick Nolte, they'll be put to work. Vine, they'll all be put to work. Micah, it's figured out now, isn't it? It's really all chips in with Ayuso. And if they can keep Del Toro to the forefront and they can keep in pink as well, then, you know, then bonus, cool. UAE, they don't care who wins. They're not a team that care who wins.
They don't, but Ayuso, he's not looking $1 million. And I think they're going to let the road decide because Ayuso, he might be. We saw him have a little bit of a wobble, didn't we, on stage 15, just in the top of Dory, the Dory climb. A little bit of a wobble, and that would be concerning for him, I believe.
Who moves up? Who outside of the podium puts themselves onto the podium in the final week?
Whoa. I think Richard Carapaz. He's sitting in 4th place. I like the way he's racing. When they go up high, he's going to be just as good, if not better than Bernal. He's my pick to go into the podium. But what about your man, Derek G? He's
mate, you don't worry about my man. My man, he's going all the way, mate. He's going all the way.
He's looking good. He is looking good.
He is, mate. He's on for one. You watch out, the Canadian. I keep the receipts, mate. Don't you worry about that. I said he'd be on the podium.
I'm looking forward to that free breakfast. Now, before we go look at our Aussies and the Aussie Watch, how they're doing throughout this Giro d'Italia, we must say thank you to FE Sports. They are one of our great sponsors here. 100% sunglasses, the Hypercraft SQs, Tommy. They are the ones that are looking at $1 million right now. They are, guess how much they weigh, these lightweight 50 grams.
Yeah.
Mate,
I don't know. How much does Sunny's weigh?
Half that, 23 grams for a pair of Hypercraft SQs. So if you're a bit of a weight weenie and you're a bit of a lightweight climber type, like a Bernal, like a Tabiri or a Rubio maybe.
Mate, if you're a big unit, get yourself one of these. It's going to cut down on the weights. Get the big units onto them.
Yeah, so check them out. 100% Hypercrafts, 23 grams. That's all you need for a big day out on the bergs. This is Roadside, presented by Zwift. So, Tommy, our Aussie Watch, how the Aussies been doing this week in the Giro. What happened on stage 14? Caden, did he get close?
He was close. He was there, wasn't he? He was second on stage 14 to your man, the big Lego head, Casper Asgreen. He actually came across the line. And he's won this reduced bunch kick because it's, they've just chopped off because this was a stage where there was the crash, interrupted, and Visma rode it to the finish, basically. Groves, he's come across the line and he's just belted the bars. He's let out a big gorilla roar, Caden, and he's frustrated. He was angry. He was pissed off that did not come back for a bunch sprint. But, so it's good to see the fight's still there, Caden. And he's a 3rd week specialist. What he does in the Vuelta the last 2 years, what he has done, is he has just mopped the floor. He goes to these filthy Vuelta Españas. And like last year was one of the hardest. And he gets over the stages and he finds himself at the sprint finishes of really hard days. And he is one of the best in the world at it. So I think he will be the sprinter who'll be arriving the freshest at these last 2 sprint opportunities. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're flat track bully sprints that he will just mop the floor. So,
Yeah,
but he was good on 14, wasn't he?
Yeah, good choice. I think that's a good, well said. Storer, he's moved up to 12th on GC. We talked about him at 425 back. I actually
Where's
think
he going
that's
to end
pretty.
up?
I think that's good for him, to be honest. I think he'll make up a few spots, and we talked about this in our preview. I think this is where Storer wants to be because he might find himself
He
when we
wants to
get
be
those
up high, mate.
when we get those real serious climbs. I think we're going to see Storer up there, and with that deficit that he's got 4 minutes back, he might be allowed to get a bit more of a leash and attack and go for a stage. And on the other side of the coin, Tommy, Chris Harper, he was really all in for GC for Jayco just to see what he could do, maybe a top 10. He's nowhere near that. He was on 17th GC as of stage 14, but after today, he's not even on the results sheet yet. He hasn't come through, so he obviously had a big meltdown there, which is disappointing for him.
He's finished 64th on today's stage, 12 minutes down. So it's for him and Damien Housen and Chris Hamilton. Any idea of riding GC is over. It's done.
Yeah. So hopefully he can find something the third week. Maybe try for a breakaway and. Makes it interesting because Luke Plapp said that he was going to go all in the third week for helping Harper and his GC bid, but with that sort of down the toilet now, maybe they can both go really strong for the third week in the break because watching today's stage at Jayco, they played it a blinder getting into the break. They actually did a really good job throughout the day. What about on the Formula One front, Tommy? I noticed Caleb Ewan is down at the Monaco Grand Prix, which is on tonight or just finishing up, and he was there with the Rolex and having a good time in the home away from home.
Who won the F1?
I'm pretty sure Verstappen is holding on. No, Norris.
Did you have? Is that the way your little financial investment went?
No, I'm a Verstappen fan, but Norris qualified first, and if you qualify first at Monaco, you generally win that race.
How about Tadej as well? He was down there, mate. He was getting around the man. He was. I saw something of him floating around the F1. All the boys, they must all just love it. All the guys there. I reckon Bling probably clears out a week in his calendar for just the F1.
We know who wasn't there, unfortunately, was Sam Welsford, the big man. He wasn't there. I asked him if he was going to be there. He's hoping Red Bull could swing some tickets for him, but unfortunately not, mate. He had the only tickets he got was a ticket to 10x5s on the big mountain. So unlucky for him. And our last watch as well, Tommy, is the plough rights. We probably don't have all the riders in right now for the stage yet, but plough right was sitting second last on GC, but
he's just getting over Mountain Crapper.
The big anchor himself, Alex Edmondson, is really making a cannonball for that Lanterne Rouge, mate. He's coming on the way down and fast.
Yeah, he's experienced Edmondson. He knows how to manage his resources. He knows what's coming in this last week. He's just keeping his powder dry. But just a quick one, back to Welsford. He said to you that he's gone out to the island. He's gone to the volcano. Now, all the guys going out to the volcano at the moment, they're the Tour de France squads. Or they're down at Sierra Nevada, down in southern Spain. Does that mean Welsford's putting in the work to go to the Tour, you reckon?
A smart man would, because as we've seen, he probably watched Roglic on the TV last night and just punched his ticket to France, because I think that's a big call, and he hasn't been to the Tour yet, has he? Or he's had one.
Oh yeah, he has.
One go. Yeah, one go, and it wasn't very successful with DSM, but that was really DSM's fault, not his. So let's hope that Sammy does get there. But Tom, third week predictions. What are going to be your predictions for how this race eventuates, and any big talking points?
Oh, I think the biggest one is Roglic has got to throw a bit of caution to the wind here. The last week, mate, he's down 3 to 4 minutes to Del Toro. 3 minutes, I think, to Ayuso. I think he's got to find a day where hopefully he wakes up and he goes, boys, I'm feeling good. And use UAE to one certain degree to try and ride the breakaway back. And then he's just got to go all guns blazing, and try and not do a Roglification where he whittles down his opponents and maybe there's a small group to the line where he takes the stage and the bonus seconds. But he's really got to go after it. And I think he's got to try and eke 2 minutes back on one stage. And if he gets that, then he could possibly turn the Giro back to a race that he can manage on his own terms, or at least kind of try and scare the younger UAE riders. I think on another note as well, the GC battle is just going to be hectic. I think the mountains, UAE have done a lot of work already. They've had the jersey for a long time, mate. They are under stress. Sure, they've got some good riders there, but I think you're going to see the Yates bros. They're just going to be throwing caution to the wind. And then the Ineos duo. I wrote this before tonight's stage, but then like Tien Arnsman and Bernal, they're just pulling rippers and, just big turns and just whacking it. And so was Carapaz. Like, the boys were just racing it like it was a C-grade crit and absolutely firing. So the third week, the GC battle is just there's going to be bodies everywhere. Bring it on.
Nah, it's going to be so exciting. I think you're right with Bernal, but you're sleeping on my man Carapaz. I have a feeling that Roglic is going to leave the race in the third week.
Race?
Yeah, I have a feeling he's going to lead the race. I think you'll have a crack on that on the Tuesday, the day after the rest day. And I think he'll just pack it up and go, you know what? I'm obviously not in the shape to win here at the Giro. I've got my goal at the Tour de France. There's no point me just melting myself over the next 4 or 5 days to finish 10th. You might as well go home, recover, and you can start his tour prep even earlier. So I have a feeling that we might see Roglic depart the Giro D'Italia as a former winner.
Where's the threshold? We see it in the sprinters, they get to stage 14, 15, and then they, before the last, this is what they've done for years, when the mountains, this is a traditional Giro, like what this year is, where they go, right, I'm done. I'm going to the Tour. Ewan did it a couple of years ago. How deep does Roglic run that line of, I'm going to try, and then when does it become too late to leave?
Well, I think it's you just give it till Tuesday. See, obviously have a good day on Monday, test the legs, see how you're going. Tuesday you just have a crack because you're only 353 back. That's nothing. And if you find yourself in the lead group when on the final, I think they finish on the mountaintop finish, then you're coming good. But if you find yourself dropped before you've even got to the real finale, there's still 20 riders in the bunch. That's when you know to pack your bags and head back to Slovenia. And get ready for the tour. So I reckon there's a chance that Roglic will leave early, and that will just send Bora into you might as well pack the whole team up if he happens to go home. But it's going to be interesting, Tommy. We're going to be recording when we do an XF. We'll do an XF on the Friday. I suspect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll do a midweek one, mate. Maybe a Thursday night even.
Yeah, we can recap one of the big mountaintop finishes. So that'll be the Giro lift out today, everyone. Thanks for listening. Let us know what you think. Who are the main GC hopes? And the big question is Del Toro, has he got what it takes to go all the way and take that Maglia Rosa to stage 21 of Milan? Tommy, it's been a good episode, mate. Looking forward to catching up midweek for the Giro.
Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on Tuesday night. It's going to be good. The last week has been so good, mate. You were crapping all over it this week, and now you're finally going to get what you want. Big mountaintop finishes, hey? Bring it on.
Here it comes. I'm looking forward to it. Third week, let's go.